question is, breaking Shabbat, obviously we've learned already in every single lecture that I've probably done over the last 5 or 6 years. Every single time we mention a little bit of Shabbat, sometimes more, sometimes less, but in essence, everybody understands by now that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote in the Torah 12 times, you violate Shabbat, you have a very, very serious problem. But what he's talking about is if you break it intentionally, meaning you go into a car. No one goes into the car unintentionally. You're going to go drive to the mall, you're intentionally driving the car. Unless you're driving to the hospital, and that's pikuach nefesh. If you're driving to the hospital to go save somebody's life, that's a mitzvah. Why? Because if you're trying to save a life, then Shabbat is put on hold. Not because the life is more important than Shabbat, but rather because the Shabbat is more important than life. How so? You put the Shabbat on hold so you can save the life, and that will allow that person to keep many, many more Shabbats for the rest of their life. So now, if a person drives on Shabbat, or smokes a cigarette on Shabbat, or works on Shabbat, that's an intentional sin. But if a person unintentionally turns on the light, he woke up in the middle of the night, he forgot where he is, he turned on the light to go to the bathroom. That's unintentional. He forgot it's Shabbat for a moment. That's not the same level of sin. That's showgig. That's an accidental sin, if you will. Now, even though it's still considered a sin, it's not the same level of sin as the others. It does not get the same punishment. A person still needs to do tshuva, still needs to say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm sorry, but it's not the same thing as the others. It's two completely different classes. Now, as far as what about if you don't know all of the details, like you just said, there are so many halachot. If you go look at the Yalkut Yosef, it's 3 books. There's the series of Yalkut Yosef has many books, but just on Shabbat, it's the biggest section. There's 3 books, 3 big books, 500-page, 600-page books, just on Shabbat. How many halachot? Hundreds and hundreds of halachot on Shabbat, of how to keep Shabbat. Now, even if you've studied it, you're not going to remember everything. So what about that? Now, if you've studied halachot Shabbat, you took the books that I gave for free in the last couple of weeks, and anyone that wants them, I still have some more in my car. You took the book, and you studied it, but you forgot something. Again, that's considered showgig. But what if you didn't study? What if you studied, you didn't get to it yet? You studied, but you didn't get to this halacha yet. That means it's still technically accidental. You studied, but you didn't get to this law yet, or you forgot this law. That still technically falls under the accidental. But what if you didn't study? What if instead of studying, you went to the baseball game? You had a shiur Torah, but one of your friends called you, like, hey, listen, you want to come to the game? No, I have a shiur Torah now. I'm learning halachot Shabbat. No, halachot Shabbat, you learn tomorrow. Come to the game. No, come on. A-Rod, Sh-Rod, all these rods, they're all hitting. They all, this guy's making $20 million a year. Give him a run for his money. Cheer for him. No. Come to the game. They're shooting hoops after. We're having a couple of beers. Maybe a few girls going to come. Get on for sure. No, come. No. Now, that person has a test. To me, it's not a test. Why? I care less about it. But Baruch Hashem, that's because I'm in this stage of my life. To a person that's just starting out, could be a big test. If he passes the test and he says, no, I have to go learn halachot Shabbat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give him a blessing beyond his imagination. But if he fails and he goes to the game and he doesn't learn the halacha that he needs to learn, that he would have learned that night, and as Hashem would have it, measure for measure, that Shabbat comes and that law comes to it and he doesn't know what to do, and he just does whatever he thinks is right, and he happens to be wrong. Then the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Shgagat Talmud Ola Zadon. If your showgig, if your accidental sin is as a result of you not learning, but not learning because you didn't get to it, but choosing not to learn, then that accidental sin is counted as purposeful sin. Zadon, mezid. You did it on purpose. Why? Because you didn't learn on purpose. It's not that you sinned on purpose, but you didn't learn on purpose, which led to that sin. Had you learned, you would have known. You chose not to learn. You chose to go to a baseball game. You chose to watch X-Men. You chose to watch some new Netflix, something. You chose to play some cards. You chose to do something else. Okay, so you chose to do something instead of learning Torah. Okay, that's led to the sin. That choice counts as mezid, which means that the tshuva has to be even stronger at that point. But again, if it's because you didn't get to it yet, you didn't learn it yet, or you simply made a mistake, that's a different category. That's not the same level of punishment. Either way, everybody needs to do tshuva. But again, there's punching somebody in the face and the cop is going to yell at you, maybe even fine you and give you some community service, and then there's murdering somebody. So driving on Shabbat is murder. It's actually worse than murder according to Hashem. Whereas doing it accidentally, that's like punching somebody in the face. It's not good, but it's not the worst thing in the world. B'ezrat Hashem, you do tshuva, you learn from your mistakes, and the reality is that eventually you're going to actually end up learning much more from your mistakes than anything else.
אני מברך את הרבנים, רגע. אני מברך את הרבנים, הרב ירון ראובן, הרב אפרים כחלון, ראשי ארגון בעזרת השם, שהלכו בפי עליון, שעלו מעלה, יהיה להם ברכה והצלחה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא בישועות ליבם לטובה ולברכה, שבכל אשר יפנו ישכילו ויצליחו, יזכרו לעשות כאלה וכאלה, הודיעו תורה לאדירה, אמן ואמן.
בעזרת השם רשת בכל הארץ. הוא היהודי הזה, הוא היה מיליונר, סגר את כל הביזנס, אמר אני משקיע פה בעולמה של תורה.
איפה הוא גר?
בפלורידה.
פלורידה, איפה זה פלורידה? באמריקה.
במיימי. כן, ליד. אנחנו שם עכשיו הולכים להקים קהילה ספרדית.
חזק אותו בשמי.
קהילה ספרדית גדולה.
תעבירו מה שבירכתי אותו.
כן, קהילה ספרדית גדולה.